a lot of the work I've been doing recently has been around the convergence of content, community, and commerce. And I think Web3, NFTs in particular, really present a fantastic opportunity to kind of bring that promise to life, especially as we think about the importance of trust in the decision-making process and the fact that a lot of consumers, especially Gen Z consumers, want to feel truly connected to the brands that they interact with and buy from. So I have a great panel of experts here to kind of dig into some of the topics that were touched on in the last session. But our goal is to dive a little bit deeper, provide some actionable insights around how to make NFTs work for certain businesses, the strategy, but also who needs to have a seat at the table? How do you measure success? And how do you kind of tie NFTs into a broader Web3 strategy and, of course, customer experience strategy? So quick note, Michelle Grant sadly could not join us. She is under the weather and couldn't travel out, which is a bummer because she has been studying this space a lot. However, Chris, who will be kicking off our panel with some introductory slides and premises, he works very closely with Michelle. They collaborated on the slides, so we're in good hands there. And Patrick Lowe of La Liga is here, and he has done a lot of work on the company's Web3 strategy, which includes NFTs. So I'm excited because I live and breathe retail, and Patrick is in sports. He's involved in active community building and customer experience and engagement. And of course, Chris has a fantastic broader view. So I'm going to ask them to come on up, and I'm going to hand things off to Chris to kind of set the stage for our conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know there was a clicker here.
Yep.
Perfect. Oh, there's a couple of us. There we go. So I know we've asked a couple times today, and it sounds like a 50-50 split on the audience about who owns crypto, who's done NFTs, and it seems like we're still interested in it, and we're still trying to get the audience to understand, is this a path forward? Is it just, what I'm going to skip by this. Essentially, is it just a passing fad? Is this just technology that's going to go? Is it a marketing ploy? Is it just going to stay in your PR scenario? So my name's Chris Silver. I come from a retail background, much like Alicia. Before starting Bamboo Meta with my co-founder, Will, I was CIO of David Yurman. Before that, I was CIO of MAC Cosmetics and Estee Lauder. Before that, head of global retail and international for Urban Outfitters brands globally. And I was torn apart this topic as well because I love storytelling, right? I love the ability to work with the brands. I love the things we do to really build that relationship between a customer and the brand and the products that they love. That's what I spent 20 years of my career doing. And I think that this is kind of amazing, but it's also very confusing. So I think it's really interesting that we've had now 4 of these up here for trying to describe what this technology is. And it reminds me of way back when the internet was first coming around. We're trying to define what this technology is to everybody, and it's got different lenses and different views. So what I like to see it from a customer service, a customer experience end, is actually just 2 separate things. Web 1 and Web 2, essentially the brand owns the data. You have data centers, you have brand-owned content, you have where the customer's profile, all where their engagement data goes. The brand owns it, and the customer accesses it. With Web 3, it's the first time where the customer owns their own data, and it's stored in public ledgers or public blockchains or basically databases that are publicly owned and dispersed. And I think that's what unlocks, and that's what unlocked for me, other than the pretty pictures that we sell, that's what unlocked for me really the customer journey and what this does from a seamless, frictionless piece that I've been trying to do for 20 years. So all Web3 is simply a protocol. It's a network type that says we're going to give the customer the keys to access and everyone else is going to be a requester. That's it. That's all that it is. Blockchain in the Web 2 world is like Azure. It's like AWS. It's Google Cloud. It's just a group of computers running the same algorithm and same software that's dispersed globally, right? That's all that it is. And it basically writes in, for every customer, it's a record in a database, which gets you to smart contracts. All a smart contract is the record line in that database. And the smart part of it is the logic. It's a program. We heard that from Dale earlier from FedEx, we heard that from Amazon. It's just the smart logic that gets applied to this row or record that's publicly accessible in there. And your wallet, right? Everyone needs this wallet or an app, but basically everyone has, Microsoft Outlook, they have Gmail, they have something that accesses their own email on a particular blockchain, right? That's all that this is. It's a plugin, it's an application for them to access what they own, right? Right now it's an app form. It could be any other different form for them to access what they own on there. And then crypto is just a unique value of how we understand bandwidth and scale and its finity around it. So it's rare, which is why we trade it as crypto items. But one thing that I love is that there's 1,000 different blockchains, there's 1,000 different wallets that exist, and there's 20,000 cryptocurrencies that exist. So from a CIO perspective, how am I going to invest in different items out there to understand where I want my roadmap to go? This offers retailers a huge new forefront. This offers new experiences, right? And the term metaverse, which has now been tossed around everywhere, right? And I think as a retailer, as a commerce person, that it's basically a new channel. It's a new channel that we must explore because that's where our customers are spending a lot of time. And if you just look at the time in TikTok versus Roblox, it's kind of unbelievable. I think it also gets you into that new generation of customer. So PacSun, I think, says it the best, that they want to be where their customer is and where their customer wants to be. That's why they have a presence in Roblox and some of the other metaverses out there. I think it's unbelievable. But I think defining the metaverse is something I'm not even going to attempt, but I think it falls within 3 categories for brands as they go to enter into it. So I think first is a digital twin, right? It's a digital twin of your store, your experience, your whatever you want to do, right? And there's some different examples out there. There's game metaverses. These are things that have a start and an end to them and a point in the middle. And then you have your virtual life where there's no real game, there's no real point to it. It's just that people are going in there to recreate their life, right? And I think that's the most amazing thing because people, the Gen Zs and lower, are trying to recreate their life in the digital world. And I think that's an amazing part that we need to kind of realize when we start planning our customer acquisition and activation strategies on a lot of our loyalty plays. This offers new communities as well. So new relationships based on it. So you have your organizations, which are like LLCs. So everyone owns a voting power in them. You have your social communities where you have rights or access in or shared thought that you want to bring into these. You have activities that bring people outdoor based on a topic. And then you have identity-based things. But these are all communities and relationships. That's the power behind this tech. And it offers new collaborations. So Pat's done quite a few of them. But essentially, there's product collaborations, right? We've seen a lot of this, and we have Hot Wheels that just launched theirs, right? There's shared value. Tiffany's just launched their CryptoPunks collection, right? There's Starbucks Odyssey, right? And then there's what Pat did with La Liga, which is the watch parties, where people come together. He brings in different sports, figures, and you get to watch it together. So it's really amazing what this technology is offering in terms of a collaboration.
Where's that photo from? Is that one of my watch parties?
That's one of the ones you texted me. It's like, hey, how cool is this?
That is my photo.
Yeah. So it's not all fun and games. I know we've been focusing on the great stuff about this technology, and it is great. We are at the very, very beginning, but there are some critical issues and challenges with entering it. And as a brand and a retailer, this is what I spend a lot of time focusing on because you always want to have your customer in mind. One of them is sustainability, right? Whether it is sustainable or not sustainable or the latest merge, I'm not getting into. It's the perception is what we're always fighting. So there's the perception of non-sustainability, right? There's the blockchain and metaverse war that's going on. There's 1,000 different ones. Which one are you going to go to? Which one is going to be the one that's still around after a while? You have your integration, the pipeline, the bridge. Dale was talking about that earlier with FedEx. What's going to help us get there? The activation or the utility and the customer experience. All these utilities, but they're not executable in retail. They're not executable in real life without an app. And that challenges around it as well because that leads to the next piece, which is the customer service aspect, that they're stuck on their own. And I know when I was CIO, 40% of my calls to the help desk were on password resets. So the fact that there's someone still in England searching for $150 million in a dump, that scares me from a brand activation of a luxury product. So I think this technology is great, but it's definitely things we need to kind of be aware of what's out there. Oh,
awesome.
That's right, I have one.
Yours, so you can keep that.
Thank you.
Awesome. I think that really helps set the stage, Chris, I think, for a lot of our deep dive conversations. And I think the one thing that really stood out to me in the early part is you kept saying the customer drives, the customer is. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about Web3 for me, is that it's kind of changing the dynamics of the relationships between organizations and consumers. We've heard time and time again as experienced professionals, as marketers, be where the customer is. But I feel like Web3 and specifically NFTs and these gaming communities kind of bring that to the next level. So can you kind of expand upon what the implications are, like for commerce brands or even just for businesses in general, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to reach people. So knowing that there is this facet of ownership and the customer driving all of this, like what are the implications there, I guess, for everyone in the room?
So I think the big thing when we work with brands and coming from a brand is what's the cohesive story of this? Or are we just kind of dropping something, because it's the latest fad? So what's the story we're trying to tell as a brand? What's the experience we're trying to get to? What's this cohesive tie to loyalty, which is now, the kind of best way to tie it? Because I think out of all these different pieces, the one thing all of us have in common, and there's some amazing people here, some amazing vendors here, is that it's for the first time we're talking customer value, right? That's what we're driving for. That's exactly what it is. Whether it's transparency, sustainability, whether it's certificate of authenticity, we're talking value. So I think coming up with what that cohesive story is that brand's trying to tell, and then finding the activations within it to make it that drive, I think that makes all the difference in the world.
Got it. And Pat, when we talk about value, what does that mean to you? Obviously, the watch parties are super cool and fun. There's this tie to fandom. So can you kind of expand upon how that drives your work and how you're thinking about Web3 more holistically?
Yeah, it's interesting because we are a 90-year soccer league, almost 100 years old. Real Madrid, Barcelona, all these big clubs. Probably about 3.5 years ago, I was in a meeting with Dapper Labs and several colleagues in Spain, and everyone was sitting there and they're looking at me like I had three heads, like crypto kitties and blockchain, and we're La Liga Santander. We have Santander, which is our title partner, which is a traditional financial institution. So everyone on our side, we're kind of thinking, yeah, this seems like a trend. Do we really want to be in it? We're talking about cats and metaverses and these different things. And so for us, I would say it really tied back to our fandom. And when we say customers, we really mean our fans. We're trending towards 3 billion in audience this year. And over the last 5 to 10 years, we've really identified that our fans and our customers live outside of the 90 minutes of a soccer match. You have the 90 minutes of a soccer match, I'm sure the diehard fans and people will still watch, but then it's everything they're consuming and everything they're doing outside of that. For us as a soccer league, we can't create an NFT by ourselves. There's a lot of things we can do, and it's pretty remarkable what we are doing and expanding kind of new ways to connect with our fans. But I would say one of our goals is we want to connect with fans in every corner of the world, and not just geographically, where they live. Back to what you mentioned with PacSun. So for us, it became evident probably 3.5 years ago that we had to be active in the space, but what does that customer journey look like? And it's very, not easy, I shouldn't say easy, but I would say it's known when we partner with ESPN here and put all of our matches on ESPN Plus, and it's Spanish language broadcast or English language broadcast, and someone's watching Real Madrid, we kind of know how our fans like to consume that. We know ESPN is the best in the business, and they're reliable, and that customer journey is going to be very smooth. When it came to NFTs, we were like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? So I think first and foremost for us, the Web3 strategy was, does it add value to our fans and our customers? And what that value is maybe not even reselling or making profit. It's how smooth is that customer journey and how will they engage and consume it. So that was kind of at the forefront of everything we were doing 3-4 years ago. And since then we've partnered up with probably 5 of some of the top brands now, which I think most other leagues probably have one NFT partner or so on. So.
Got it. And just so everyone in the audience has a greater understanding of where you kind of sit in the broader organization and what that decision-making process looks like, can you expand upon what the the selling of this strategy looks like, because what really resonated in an earlier session, Shirley from PacSun noted like that C-level buy-in was crucial, just getting everyone on the same page. So what did that process look like for you, and were there any internal hurdles or objections that you kind of had to walk through? Like you're putting around crypto kitties, like the CFO wrapping their head around all of that, I guess.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, really, now we have Dapper Labs as kind of our official NFT highlights partner. We have SoRare as kind of our fantasy blockchain partner. We have Green Park Sports, which is a metaverse where they're creating digital collectibles, leveraging our IP, which avatars can go and acquire and show their fandom within their metaverse. TVM is another. So there's several. And I would say when the onslaught, if you will, started for us as a league, we were getting requests left, right, and center saying, we will be your NFT partner. And even large sums of money coming our way, thinking, oh my gosh. And our, my president and commissioner, President Tebas, was sitting back thinking, let's take a deep breath. I think we've now identified that we have to be in the space because we know that a large portion of our fans are engaging in the space, more so I would say in North America and then parts of Southeast Asia. Spain, I would say it's coming now. But we knew we had to be active in the space, but we were getting this onslaught of different opportunities, and we kind of took a deep breath. And at the C level, after we kind of beat the drum and said we have to be here, and everyone bought in, it was then doing the due diligence on the variety of brands and partnerships we could have, and going back to the customer experience. Yeah, with a jersey, Adidas can deliver that jersey. ESPN can deliver your audiovisual product and your broadcast. How do we know that we were partnering with the best to make sure that the customer journey will be, the customer experience will be top notch? So that buy-in kind of throughout was on our digital team, who's head of digital strategy, which again, that's now morphed also into Web3. We have a joint venture here in the US with Relevant Sports, which is owned by Stephen Ross and the Miami Dolphins. So they sit on our board here for North America, who are really saying this is where we have to be. And then everyone in Spain was kind of coming in. So it was a variety of departments. Legal, we're not fans of these contracts. So I mean, it was a variety of kind of stakeholders internally. But once we knew we needed to be in the space, it was more about the due diligence of who we wanted to partner with. And even in our case, it's not, revenue is key, but it was also making sure that we're going with the safest bet for our customers and our fans to make sure they kind of, enjoy the journey.
That's great. And I do want to get into specific NFT projects and drops in a second. But Chris, I'm hoping you can kind of speak more broadly, because you shared a few different examples of how NFTs will kind of change the way brands and businesses go to market, whether that be through collaborations or unique drops. So can you kind of expand upon that a little bit, elaborate on what the opportunities are and whether they're being fully realized at this point? Because I feel like personally, like we're just scratching the surface, and like we're seeing these little blips of opportunity and possibility, but I feel like there aren't any brands like going all in just yet. But correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right. This is at the very, very beginning stages, and I think the really cool part is that every time on LinkedIn or some kind of announcement, you always go, oh, wow, okay, they did something cool there. That's interesting. I wonder how it's going to, kind of play out. The brands we work with, they're trying to connect loyalty to their customers' everyday lives. So one of the things that we do is basically we bridge between Web 2 and Web 3, and the customer doesn't need an app. So we put it right into their Google or Apple wallet, so we can do location-based awards and triggers and talk clienteling and talk, Web3, different loyalty ways to power their own internal systems. So what we talk about is how are they getting real value across their entire journey, the 360 actual degrees, whether it's in wholesale, whether it's in, different department stores, or whether it's in their own stores, or, for certain circumstances, ones that want to give rewards for going on hiking challenges in a grand, in one of the national parks. I think it's pretty amazing kind of what we're able to do and the cool things that are out there as we connect to brands' whole loyalty systems to pull them on, because it does open up the collaborations. It does open up for the future of these things, to give unfettered access in. It allows you to gamify the everyday world, but also have not only just utility, because I think the utility word is a little bit overused, but to have executable utility that works in retail. And that's why I think it's so important to craft that story with the education and learning team to kind of really hone what that brand voice and DNA is across the whole footprint as these brands are considering, doing a facelift on their existing loyalty programs and journeys. And I think that's the most exciting part, is that brands are realizing to reactivate a lapsed consumer is a lot less expensive than to buy a new one. So offering the value for that consumer over time and the engagement, no matter where they are, and that's why you see these collaborations, which I personally love because it's opening up brand new storytelling options, I think is the most exciting part as a retailer.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think what's really interesting is we've been talking a lot about how loyalty is a challenge in retail. I think that's kind of extending out into other industries as well, because there are so many options and there is so much access now that, it's like what resonates with the consumer, like what kind of gives them a reason to keep engaging with that brand or with that business. So it's not just about, points and rewards, right? It's about experiences. And, in the last presentation, we talked about access and exclusivity. I think there were some really great projects from like New York Fashion Week that served as an example where I think it was Afterpay maybe that had collaborations with different brands, and like you bought the NFT and you could get products, you can get a ticket to an event. So let's dig a little bit deeper into kind of like how this is kind of driving the next generation of loyalty. What do the folks in the room kind of need to be thinking about as they think about their customer journey and what loyalty means to them? Like, is there a universal definition that we should be thinking about as it relates to NFTs right now?
No, and definitely free shipping over $100 isn't going to cut it anymore, I'm sorry to say. No, it's actually forcing brands to come up with the conversations of, we value your loyalty, we value your relationship over the years. Let's make something that's a cohesive story. I think the coolest part about this world that we're living in is we've seen it iterate and change and learn so many times over this last year alone. We've seen so many different stories and kind of the learnings from it and the updates from it. And the one thing is that it's showing brands like you need to value your customers, because customers are now being more intelligent, right? They're understanding, I have money and I want to spend it, but I want to build a relationship. I want that value for what I'm doing. I want to be rewarded for, knowing you and being a part of you for so long. I want, to be, that handheld way, whether it's customer service, whether it's give me access into new product launches, to the new creative. There's a lot of different things that are being brought up. And the nice part is that this is all to the benefit of the consumer, but also it's allowed across and out of the four doors of your retailer into these collaboration spaces, into the real world, into your other partners where they can engage directly with the products that they love, because the customer owns their own data and their access to the data. So they're allowing you in so you can make the most personalized experiences for them. You can give them the most personalized offer that really mattered to them. I know Gary Vee talks a lot about, he does a lot of research in his customer. The customer is telling us, and now finally we have the technology to listen. And I think that's one of the most important things, is that we can give value that actually means something to each individual consumer on the personalized level.
It leads me to think about what the opportunity is for co-creation as well. Like I think in earlier presentations, someone brought up creators and influencers and how that's a big amplification channel for NFTs and promoting Web3 initiatives. But I've had a few conversations where, experts have said, the opportunity is to bring that larger collective of creators and partners into the fold to design a new, product concept. And, if enough people contribute to it or vote on it, like that product gets created. And you also own the digital twin through the NFT. So any thoughts? This is a curveball, by the way. I'm just kind of brainstorming here. Like, what is this possible, or is there opportunity?
So I was actually I was just out at Dreamforce. It's been the concert, the circuit that's been going on. Who knows what time zone we're all on right now? But was just out at Dreamforce and was discussing with a huge fashion retailer, and they were saying that they're going to do a contest basically for rebranding their company logo. through one of these like, kind of all-inclusive, bring it in, this is part of what you get, and you get like your own sweatshirt. And it's really amazing of kind of what brands are now open to bring in that co-creation market of we hear you as a brand to the retailer or to the customer. So I think that's pretty amazing of the different things that are getting just options opened. I'm not sure, have you heard of anything? Because
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for us, everything we're doing is, I wouldn't say reactive. I mean, I think we're benchmarking in terms of other sports leagues around the globe having multiple partnerships, but reactive in a sense of we're looking for the best that are already creating those products. So Dapper did NBA Top Shot. We just created La Liga Golazos. It's very similar by nature, so it's that co-creation product of La Liga Golazos, how we're leveraging archive footage and contemporary footage. I think for us, what will be interesting is when we step out of that space and get away from, the fantasy trading card NFT or the highlight NFT, and actually look for someone like you who have expertise in how do we then create something that will engage with our fans that isn't necessarily the product, but it is purely experiential. So we have our supporter groups, I think there's like 80 of them across the US who are just diehard fans. There's probably, thousands and thousands of them that sit in LA and go to the same bar every weekend. And how do we actually connect with them and add value to them? They're already a fan of our club. They're already a fan of Real Madrid, and they'll just go there to drink beer and watch the game. But what is that experience as a league that we can provide to them that's going to have them coming back? And again, meeting them where they already are. So again, we would look for someone with the expertise to help us with that, and that's that co-creation piece that we can't do it solo. But we know what they like. We know how they consume the product. We know what language it's in. We believe that we know our fans and our customers better than anyone, but it's, how do we continue to meet them where they are?
I think one of the, I'm sorry.
Go for it. This makes my job easy.
I was going to say, because one of the very cool things about, La Liga, you have like such a wide supporter range as well of people that are passionate about your sport. They're willing to give you 90 minutes once or twice a week to, really sit down, enjoy it, build that community, so you must be loving all the new options that are out there for kind of building awareness.
Definitely. And I think, from the products that we're creating at the moment, probably, it's funny, we were doing before, so we partnered with Dapper Labs a year and a half ago, and we just announced the product launch last week. So it's La Liga Golazos, we just announced it, and it's very, very similar to NBA Top Shot, but you'll have Messi's last goal at La Liga clipped up, minted, and then put out there with Dapper. And we're excited about it, but what I always think is 99% of what we're creating with these partners probably is just the value is intrinsic to the fandom. So it's, if I don't actually have a team in La Liga. I support Lyon in France because I live there. If there's a Lyon NFT, maybe I'll be the only person in this room who would buy that, and I wouldn't actually look to resell it. I would just want that to demonstrate my fandom. And so it's that next level of fandom, and the future of fandom is what we see it as. And I think a lot of the products that we're creating, people are going to get them, but even some of the surveys and focus groups we were doing in Spain, we already kind of knew the North American market with some of the, proof in the pudding with what Dapper has done with Top Shot. But when we look at the Spanish fans, we were saying, would you buy an NFT? Why would you buy an NFT? And I think like 10% of them knew, I can't remember exactly, it was like 10% of the people in Spain knew what the NFT was. And of that 10%, 87% of them said,
right,
I want to resell it and make money. But I actually think it's just, for us, it's more of a fan play. And so it's we're seeing it all over the place. We're seeing these different ways of connecting with fans and creating these products with the best in class. And it's interesting to kind of see where it will land in a couple of years. But yeah, I would buy that NFT just because I'm a fan, not to actually make money off it.
Yeah. Honestly, the only NFT I've purchased was Mac's NFT collaboration with Keith Haring.
Yeah, I did that same one.
Nice.
Yeah.
I did the lower level because I'm a noob, so I just wanted to test it out and see what it was like. But I liked that there was a charitable component. Mm-hmm. Obviously, love the Mac brand, and Keith Haring is one of my favorite artists, so obviously perfect. Don't plan to resell it. I just want to hold on to it just because it kind of checks all of the boxes for me as far as okay, this is something that connects with me. But Patrick, I want to go back to a point you made around people opting in and saying, yes, I would buy an NFT, or yes, I want that. Is there an education gap at all? Like when we think about the broader marketplace or broader consumer base, I'm wondering how many people actually know what an NFT is, know the ins and outs technologically, or if any education is required on behalf of the businesses to kind of get them to opt in and be like, no, this is like something bigger. You get access to community and fandom, and it's something much bigger than like this digital thing.
Yeah, I think yes, and especially for us when we look at it at a global lens, there will be certain markets where it's significantly easier for our fandom and our customers to really enjoy that experience and really engage. At least in the US, we actually rank right there with like the NBA in terms of Gen Zs and millennials just consuming La Liga product above a lot of the other top leagues, North American leagues in the US. So that's great. So we already think that the customer journey and the education piece is not fully tackled or addressed here, but it's maybe launching from a better place than other markets. I think for us, there will be a lot of education on the utility of them too. I mean, I'm happy just to own a jersey from when I was a kid, and I have that in a drawer back in Canada at my mom and dad's home, and it's just sitting there, but I'm like, oh yeah, I own that jersey. I don't know, the utility of that jersey, it's gonna collect dust, I guess. There might be some, I'll buy an Alphonso Davies Team Canada jersey for the World Cup or something, maybe I'll wear that with pride during the World Cup. But then you look at the NFTs, and I'm happy just to have that NFT. I think the education for us will be, where will our fans actually demonstrate that fandom? I mean, we say it's the future of fandom. Once we get them in, and I think we can get them in, we have really good results in terms of mobilizing and engaging our fandom across. I think we're one of the top leagues in the world in terms of engagement through social media. But I think it'll be really, once they get it, once they acquire it, how do they demonstrate that fandom? And I think that's the next kind of iteration, the next piece that we'll have to really dig in on.
Excellent. So Pat, you shared a little bit about like who's involved in the process as far as developing and executing upon the strategy. So Chris, I want to ask you, because obviously you have this really expansive retail and commerce experience.
20 years experience? How old are you? There's no way. There's no way.
Do I look older?
He started when he was 5. Because you see so many different applications, we're talking about loyalty, we're talking about ownership, we're talking about co-creation. Who within the organization really needs to have a seat at the planning table? Because we're talking about journey mapping here, right? And making sure that all of these Web3 touch points and opportunities align to this overall brand story. So who do you think really needs to be involved?
Literally, it takes a village. And I think that's the only kind of answer that everyone will kind of agree with. I think everyone has to have a seat at the table because it touches literally every aspect. It touches your creative, it touches your visual. If you go into a store and you say that this means 30% off, it touches your retail operations, it touches your learning and development. The digital team, the marketing team, the technology teams that have to be involved, and finance, absolutely. Because what are we gonna do? What are the legal pieces to it? So I think for the first ones, the conversations are, because a lot of this is an unknown for how brands are gonna enter, a lot of them, the iconic brands, are very concerned on their image, right? They've spent a lot of time building these very close relationships with the consumer, and that is the most valuable asset that they have. And they're very concerned on how this will look. What's the perception of this to their customer base? How does this, affect them? What does this mean over time? Is it a utility that, can be found on YouTube afterwards? Or is it something that is everlasting and is going to grow into something? So there's a lot of conversations that get brought up from different aspects, but basically you have to bring everyone to the table on this because it literally touches every single aspect. Especially with customer care and how someone's going to have an issue with this. They're not going to say, oh, that's with this blockchain. They're going to say, that's with this brand. And I think that's one of the most scary situations for a lot of the luxury retailers that we talk to, is they spend years and years and years and years, 30, 40, 50 years in certain circumstances on building that reputation, on that relationship with you. And they want to make sure that that story and that you understand that there's a lot of care that's put into it. So they have to do the work up front. This doesn't happen overnight. It's not quick. Yes, a digital product is somewhat cheaper to do, but that has nothing to do with it. It's the perception, it's the story, it's that cohesive feel that does it have that brand voice, that DNA and experience.
I'm glad you brought up the customer care piece as a possible risk factor, because I feel like we talk about silos a lot in retail, getting everyone aligned
years, yeah.
and centered around, the brand story, the brand promise, and of course what to do if something goes awry, right? So does this require like a full other level of onboarding and support for the care team that's already strapped for time and resource?
Being a CIO, it's not if it goes awry, it's when it goes awry.
And how often?
So you always have to watch out for that. And then there's also all the legal pieces around customer consent, the messaging regulations, all the different legal aspects that come from, highly regulated channels. Yes, there's a whole training, there's a whole questions, you have to do knowledge-based articles. And then often the stores are the ones that are taking the brunt of this. And I don't know if anyone's here ever worked in retail, but trying to talk the weather for even 30 seconds while you're trying to do a return or maybe check something or give a discount or call a manager over, it's the longest 30 seconds in the world, I can assure you. So we as retail operations and working with those teams for so long, you take that seriously. So I think the more you do, the more verbose it is. To make sure you have every situation covered, of course, for the best situations, but also for the worst. So, it's when people call that's when your brand loyalty, your brand customer service, that brand experience really kicks in. And that's what brands realize.
Pat, do you have any thoughts or insights as far as how you guys handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it's for us as a property, we always go back to our fan base and our fandom being our customers. And if we mess it up, it's very challenging. I mean, you don't want to. Soccer fans are probably some of the most loyal and passionate fans, and so I would say every move we do, whether it's changing from a broadcast partner and then knowing that all of our games will be on an OTT platform, there's already maybe a curve there for a fan of Real Madrid for 50 or 60 years, and then I've actually received LinkedIn messages personally, like, why would you do this deal? I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I mean, that was probably the longest 2 minutes of my life reading it.
Some Lyon fan somewhere.
Some Lyon fan, but I think it's for us, it's almost why we were. It's funny. I think I was having breakfast with our partners from Green Park Sports. So Green Park have a partnership with the NBA, with us, and with League of Legends. And it's metaverse, and they're creating, they're leveraging our IP to create Real Madrid ball caps, and your avatar will then go in wear their ball cap. In that metaverse, we're going to do like pre-game tailgate parties, perhaps, where you can have like a legend on the jumbotron. You're inside the app, and you have fans from Barcelona, from New York, from Hong Kong, all there, Barcelona fans sitting together, engaging with each other and watching this experience. If that goes wrong, our fans come heavy to us on why are you doing these partnerships? How are you actually adding value? And again, it goes beyond the 90 minutes of the game. We already know and we feel confident in the broadcast product, but outside that 90 minutes is where all that content is consumed and where we really want to add the value to our fans. And if we mess it up once or twice, maybe they forgive you, but it's really tough. So it goes back to us being a soccer league and why we look for experts in the market. We look for people like Chris. We look for Dapper Labs. We look for those benchmarks to make sure that we're providing that best journey and that best experience, or else the fandom could potentially go down, which we don't want. Yeah,
and I think I'd be remiss if we didn't discuss at least a little bit measurement and just gauging overall impacts. I feel like, especially within organizations where Web3 and NFTs are largely like a marketing-driven initiative. I know it may depend on the organization. Marketing is feeling pressure to perform. They're feeling pressure to prove the value of all of these investments, especially more quote-unquote experimental ones. So how are you handling measurement, proving the success? Does it depend on the initiative at all?
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie, revenue is important. So traditional revenue generation through the products that we're creating. And that's important to us, and then obviously our partners who are helping create those products. So revenue is definitely important, but it's not just revenue. I would say it is engagement. We're finding creative ways so that we know that if Chris is an Atletico Madrid fan, but he wants to go have the ultimate experience at the El Clasico, which is our Super Bowl moment. Maybe he has to buy 3 packs on our drop, and then he can unlock an experience in Spain or whatever that is. So we're measuring it through revenue, but it's also through engagement and consumption of the product. And I think one great thing is that we're a very flexible property, and we want to be flexible with our partners to make sure that we're continuing to add that value to our fans and the customers, and creating products that they want to engage with and consume and purchase.
Any thoughts, Chris? Like, does it require almost like a reverse orchestration from like your end goal or end outcome, and you kind of develop the metrics from there, or what would you recommend?
I'll answer it real quick, because I think we're about to get the hook. But no, essentially, it's a couple different things, and it depends on the brand. The 2 kind of consistent pieces through are your Net Promoter Score, CSAT, and your lapsed consumer. It's going from the marketing and the PR into the CRM, the loyalty, those kind of organic, sustainable growth pieces. So we see that as being, the main drivers for this is how do we get a more engaged consumer? How do we, reactivate a lapsed consumer? And then how do we give value to the customers that are already on to have them, build that stronger relationship?
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think we had one question that has popped up that I think will really wrap this up nicely. So Chris, it is you and Bamboo Meta that is driving our first NFT experience. So out on the tables, we have already mentioned this, you're going to scan, you're going to get an experience with an NFT, but could you just really briefly walk them through what is it that's exactly happening when they do this process?
Absolutely. And real quick, I'm not the only one doing it. There's also some great guys from NF Heroes as well doing some stuff out there. They're setting up some really cool stuff. So I actually signed up for it as well. And I know there's a couple others out there from like Coinbase and some other things. But mine's one of them on the tables as well. So what we did was we are an abstraction layer. So I'm a retailer. I hate friction points. I'm not a big fan of forcing the consumer to go to an app, sign up, go through a lengthy process. So Will, our CTO, actually, who is the tech behind this company, when you sign up for it, we own the patent to integrating into the Apple or Google Wallet. So as you scan that QR code, this is a scan. Normally we, tie into Apple Pay for signing up at the register. We'll sign it into your shipment confirmations, your order confirmations, your evergreen emails of that little add the wallet button. You see it for every flight ticket you've done, everything. So by just adding that, it basically orchestrates everything and gives you a crypto account, or not a crypto, I'm sorry, a blockchain account that now you have a profile. And that pass now lives in your wallet, and that pass is now universal. So it works online, it works in store, you scan it at any register. But the pass, essentially, when you scan it, it's location and it's a new messaging channel. So now you can enable customers to do push notifications. So now you do push notifications to your customer base, where you can tie it into your marketing systems, or you can do it based on location. So when you come on site here, it'll say, welcome to the convene, that shows up on the 3rd floor. It'll say, welcome back to day 2. And then what we did was we, as a prize for day 2, for you walking onto the conference floor here tomorrow, so you have to come back, we integrated into Starbucks, and basically we minted a gift card for everybody. So when you do it, it'll automatically turn into a Starbucks gift card that's minted on the chain, where you can actually redeem it, and it'll show you how much funds you have left over, but it's $10 on us. So now you can see an actual executable utility that works we chose Starbucks. It would have worked with anyone that had that. But that just showed kind of what we're trying to do. Elevate the messaging channel, easy on the consumer, frictionless journey channel. But also, we're D2, we're Bamboo Meta. We had nothing to do with Starbucks other than we wanted to give a reward that was value to you for listening to me go on for 45 minutes here.
No, I think that was really helpful because it helps us to then say, what am I actually doing here when I scan this? And what's the process? What does it look like? And then we'll actually get the benefit of it. So
and
thank
it's dynamic. So it could be your event pass, it's your customer ID, it's a discount code, it's anything you want it to be, and it's a new channel of communication out of your regulated text and email.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for that great information. Give them a round of applause for sharing that NFT info.